Thanks for joining me today, Austin,
Yes.
from Get Up and Go Kayaking in Crystal River and the Chaz River in Florida. I'm stoked to catch up with you.
Yes. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I've heard so much about Get Up and Go Kayaking through whether it's PR articles or your amazing websites and details that you have in your inspiration about all the different locations. And I know each owner of Get Up and Go Kayaking is different. One, I would love to learn a bit more about Get Up and Go Kayaking as the company and how it got started, and then we'll dive into your specific locations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me again. This is Get Up and Go Kayaking is a really cool, unique operation. Buddy of mine, his name's Justin Buzzy. He's the founder and CEO. He started this company in 2016 or 17. I'm getting older. My mind is going a little bit. It feels like sometimes, but yeah, he started it, and it started from, I think he and his now wife went on like a kayak tour and were like, this is awesome. We should think about something like this. And then there it is, Get Up and Go Kayaking. And they started at Rock Springs in Apopka, Florida. And he had, I think it's funny, he was friends with some of my friends growing up. And then we met. And then he worked at Golf Channel. And then he helped me get a job at Golf Channel. And then it was not for me. The fit was not there. And then when he started Get Up and Go, my twin brother was working with him. And then I was like, man, I might should do that. And so ended up getting out of the corporate world, guided. My goal was like to be a tour manager for music bands. And I went on a tour in Europe, got back, got into a car accident. I was like, I need to figure this out again. And he got the Get Up and Go to be a franchisable. So I ended up lucky enough to get the first franchise location, which is Crystal River. And so we started that in 2018. But yeah, Get Up and Go now has over 30 locations and all thriving, all doing really well. And I don't know if that explains it too much, but
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
really small start. And now it's really cool to see how big it's gotten.
Yeah, I read somewhere that it was the initial start was a lot of friends and family involved in the initial locations, which is amazing.
Yes. Yeah, I think and the second location was the Rainbow River location, and that's another one of Justin's friends, Sam and Mario. But yeah, it's like a big family. It is truly like very family driven and friend driven as far as like the other owners and all of us now. It feels like one big family, which is pretty cool. Call it Get
That
Up
is,
and Go fam.
yeah, and each location's locally owned and operated, even though it has 30 locations. It's not a
Mhm.
big corporate entity that is running them all.
Yes, and I personally take a lot of pride in that, not doing the corporate stuff, like the jargon. I know the copy and paste kind of thing. It's very unique for a location. All the owners are unique in their own ways and they offer something different. It's funny, the Wiki Wachi location, the owners of that, Taylor actually guided for Crystal River and the Chaz, and then she started her own. So it's pretty cool when you have like people who work with the company as a guide, and I guided for about 8 months before I started. I guided at Titusville, the bioluminescent Winter Park, and Rock Springs. So I got to guide, which is really fun. But it's cool to see when your guides turn into owners.
Yeah,
It's pretty sweet, and they're doing killer. So it's awesome.
yeah, that's amazing to grow up within the company and have the experience and be able to have the opportunity to keep expanding.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty sweet. Big blessing for sure.
Yeah, awesome. So I would love to learn a bit more about the specific locations, the Crystal River and the Chaz. Let's start with maybe Crystal River and where is it located? What makes it unique? And then how do you get there in terms of in Florida where it's located for those that are not familiar?
Yeah, it is located on the west coast of Florida, right on the Gulf, and it's north of Tampa, probably about an hour and a half. But yeah, it's what makes it unique is it is the manatee capital of the world. So we do get a lot of folks from out of town who come and visit and want to see manatees, which is really sweet. And then it's also home to tons of springs as well. One of which is Three Sisters Springs, which is the first magnitude spring. It is another big piece of Crystal River. It's like it helps its identity. I have a few more springs that are pretty big as well. There's Jurassic, there's House Spring, there's King Spring. There's just tons. And that area is really unique too. There's a scalloping season, so you get like tons of people that come in and out of that area. But yeah, it is really cool. I think one of the biggest pieces is the town, Crystal River. It's so manatee driven. You go in and you know you're there because there's manatees everywhere. And I sold out. I got a manatee tattoo because of it, because of the business and the location. But it is a pretty sweet location. You can be in 6 miles. You're 6 miles inland from the Gulf, so you could be out on the ocean fishing all day and then come back and and then go to the spring if you want. So it's pretty unique, but very manatee driven, which is sweet.
Yeah, and then you run tours all year round, but the manatees are there maybe just seasonally.
So we do have what they call resident manatees that stay in the area year round. And I don't know the count. Last count I got was around 40 manatees that
Okay.
kind of stay in the area year round. We do see them in the off season quite a bit, but when season hits and the Gulf gets colder, they all come back in for food and refuge, and then they turn the springs into sanctuaries. We don't operate inside of the springs at all during manatee season, just because that's their safe place. But yeah, we do see them year round. We can't ever guarantee seeing them since they are obviously wild animals, but yeah, we do have some that hang around. It's pretty cool, especially when our guides will see them and I saw that one 2 weeks ago. So it's unique in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the springs stay, you mentioned this, the springs stay the same temperature all year.
Yep, people have different numbers, but yeah, I would say 70 to 72 degrees year round is what the springs stay at, which provides like the safest environment for manatees, especially when the Gulf gets cold. They can't survive that cold. So they come in. Crystal River does a really good job at providing these spaces. They'll plant eelgrass, they'll do the things that really keep manatees safe during the winter time. And we try to do our best also to keep them safe while on tours. So yeah, they do a really good job. It provides a really safe place.
Okay. And what are the different tours then at Crystal River offer? And what is the manatee season? And
Yeah.
what are the tours that are outside of the manatee season that you run as well?
Yeah, so manatee season. So we have our Crystal River Manatee Season Tour, which is November 15th through March 31st, which is manatee season. Sometimes, depending on the season, we've had years where they've extended season just a little bit due to maybe there's another cold snap and there's still so many manatees in the springs. But that is generally November 15th through March 31st. And then the other side of the season, the other part of the year, we run our Three Sisters Springs Tour, where we go back into Three Sisters. They just actually did a shoreline restoration project on the springs. So they redid all of the banks and they were getting eroded. And a lot of people were like jumping on the rocks and things like that, which is a no-no. So now they've redone it. It looks beautiful. But yeah, so we essentially on that tour, we will start from Kings Bay Park where we launch, and then we'll go paddle to Three Sisters. Along the way, and there and back, if there are manatees, we stop and try to get some interaction with them. And then if you'd like to swim back in the springs, we typically park outside of the springs so that none of our boats or people are on the rocks. And then they can have a life jacket or a noodle or floaty or whatever, and then swim back in if they choose, or they can paddle back in. We just don't get out of the kayak inside of the springs or like on the rocks. But yeah, that one is a really cool one too, just because you get to see Three Sisters, which is arguably one of the most beautiful springs in the world, in my opinion. And so blue, the colors are like, a lot of people don't get to see colors like that in the wild. I would say like you can go to a swimming pool, and I think a swimming pool doesn't even look as good as Three Sisters, but yeah, that's what we do in the off season.
Amazing. Yeah, I've only seen pictures and I've explored Tampa and kayaking around there, but I had no idea back when I was exploring these areas about Crystal River. I would have definitely added to my trip. I definitely did a lot of kayaking trips and paddling trips where there were some massive alligators
Oh
around
yeah. Oh
around
yeah.
just Tampa itself. I'm curious to see if you find alligators on your tours, and is
Yeah.
that typically a concern to people, or how do you manage that?
Yeah, it's funny. So alligators are more scared of you than you are of them is the typical slogan. But I've seen them on one hand in 7 years. Since 2018, I've probably seen on one hand gators, like 5 gators maybe. And the gators that we have out there, they're small. And it's a pretty active environment out there because we have Pete's Pier, there's a huge boat marina there. So there's a lot of activity, so it doesn't provide as calm of an environment for some. Where we go on our tours, we do not really see gators. We would never put anybody in the water next to one either. But we do see gators at the Chaz a little bit. But that's really, we never really brush up against any gators. We'll see turtles and fish and birds and manatees way more than most other things. Sometimes dolphin too, which is a really cool
Yeah.
treat. Yeah. But yeah, gators, I would say we do have some gators at the Chaz. That is a completely different kind of location, but that provides like the calmness and stuff for them to be out there, but we don't get out around them.
Cool. And then with your trips, everything is guided. You're not offering self-guided rentals. What are
Mhm.
some of the benefits of what do you get to experience with a guided tour? Why take a guided tour with Get Up and Go Kayaking? And then with even manatees, how do you manage your interactions with the manatees and how does a guided trip play a part in that?
Yeah, I love, great question. Our company is a bit unique at Crystal River, rather, like that location, because we have never once ever rented kayaks out. I'm not a big believer in rentals, not to knock anyone that does rentals, but I just think that the gift of being able to operate in Crystal River and the ecosystem that is Crystal River is it's something to be like coveted. So we want to protect it and we want to make sure that all of our guests are doing the right thing, correct thing. So all of our tours are guided, which means that we have a guide that just goes out in their own kayak and directs. And if they see a manatee, they'll direct our guests on like how to operate around them. We always give a safety briefing before the tour, and then in our booking emails, we send a Manatee Manners video as well to give our guests like a little bit of a rundown before they get out there. But we only practice passive observation. So that really means, I could link a story into this, but I was out on a tour one time and we were at one of the springs in Crystal River and we couldn't move for 45 minutes because there were so many manatees around us. We don't put any paddles in the water when we're around them. We don't chase. We don't stick anything in the water. The easiest way to describe it is they're wild animals. We do not want to domesticate them in any way, shape, or form, or even give them a reason to feel, I don't want to say taken care of, but we don't feed them. We don't touch, we don't, they're not pets. So we don't treat them as such. So we'll just sit there, passively observe them. And if they come up to the kayak and kiss on it or to exhale, their breath smells pretty bad, but it smells like salad kind of thing. But if they come up full, like that's totally fine. But we tell our guests, keep your hands in the kayak, don't touch them, don't stick any cameras in the water, just let them do their thing. And ultimately what that does is help them live in the wild more successfully. Because if you try to act, if you domesticate them in a sense, like if you feed them or you do that, they won't know how to operate sometimes when they go out into the Gulf. And we take pride in that. We don't like renting because another story, I saw a couple in a rental and they saw a manatee in the middle of a waterway where boat traffic is. And just because they saw the manatee, they hopped out and tried to swim with it. And it's not only are you disturbing the manatee, you're also putting yourself in danger. There's no dive flags out, anything like that. So it just gives us a bit more control and just protecting. And that's truly what we want to do the most, is just make sure that we leave the place how we left it and we don't add to any destruction or anything like that. We just want to
love the place to death.
Exactly. And we want it around for future generations. I want my daughter one day to go out there and have the same experiences that I have currently, which is the goal. But
that's amazing. And thanks for sharing that insight into guided versus I think on the rentals you could definitely do a lot of education and planning up front. In general, everything you guys are doing is so much better than boats and not impacting the areas with boats and blades, which is, I imagine, the biggest threat to the manatees is boat traffic.
Yep, I would say that's a very large one. And it's not to knock any of our like competitor or not competitors or our friends in the environment, but it is a bit sad sometimes when you see a big boat full of people and then they see one manatee and then they just all get out and they start swimming with it. And it's like maybe that you go swimming and then you imagine if 30 random people come in and start wanting to swim with you and corner you up. Like that's just not, there's that whole thing. And then obviously the motor and anchors, the whole thing that kind of can sometimes, it could be impactful in a negative way sometimes. But in Crystal River, I think a lot of them do it pretty well. I think like we all work well together, and they also get a lot more training as boat captains than I need to hold. But I think everyone loves Crystal River and they want to protect it and they want to see it protected. So I do think that there is I'm not at all trying to knock the boat captains or anything like that because they are really big integral pieces of the ecosystem out there. But I do think that they do a pretty good job. Some don't, some do, but I do think that for us, at least, it's easiest to just have some paddles and some life jackets and stay quiet.
And you have a pretty cool experience. So you talk about your clear kayaks. I think you offer clear kayaks as an option, or all tours clear kayaks.
So we don't own anything but clear kayaks. We only offer the clear kayak tours, which provides a pretty cool experience in and of itself. I've described it to some guests who've called up. It's like swimming with manatees, but not getting wet kind of thing, because you can see right through the water. And when it gets cold in Florida, I know some people might laugh at that, but it does get pretty chilly, and there are still like swim tours that go out and things, but they're all dressed to the nines in wetsuits and all that. And I'm like, I'd rather just wear a jacket and some sweats and then get the same experience. So yeah, all of our kayaks are clear, and we try to change them out at least 2 to 3 times a year to make sure that they're all maintaining their clarity, so they're not just like regular plastic kayaks at that point. But yeah, and we only go out with 10 people max unless communicated with us before the tour, just to keep it small, keep it tight. That way we can all operate in one footprint instead of having some people here and there and all over the place. And they're all tandem also.
Okay.
So there's 2 people per kayak. And we can make singles. And if there was like a group that booked that's 3 people, they would get 1 kayak tandem, and then we would modify the other kayak to be a single kayak.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a solo person, you could join another group that's open group and join somebody in a tandem, or you have an option to configure the kayak to paddle alone.
Yeah, we never would force a guest to like paddle with somebody that they don't know. So if you book a odd numbered party, you would get enough kayaks to fit only your party and not have to worry about anyone else being on that kayak with you.
Tandem kayak could make a great team or divorce, right?
Hey, I used to say this when I was guiding out at Rock Springs. I was like, if you need to know if you're supposed to be with your partner, this is a good test. And I would go out with my now wife, but she and I was like, if we can get through this, we can get through anything. And we're still together. So I do think it could be a bit of relationship building for sure.
I agree. And team building. Like,
yes,
get out with your team.
We've had some teams come out, some businesses who I think we've done a group of 40 people that came with the business, and it was a team building, and it was really cool. We've had schools bring their kids out, things like that. So it definitely will force you to be a team, I will say.
Yeah.
Making sure you're paddling at the same time. And another reason why we have a guide out there though, too, to help with directing. And there's Crystal River is a beginner paddle, so we label it. So a lot of the times we'll get people who've never kayaked. So it's really cool also to see people actually get it and know how to kayak after the tour. And I would say tandem kayaking is harder than single kayaking sometimes. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
Absolutely. So you've got the Crystal River / Three Springs, about an hour north of Tampa. Tampa is probably the best place to get into to do that trip. And if you're flying in, or if you want to stay in a city, make that your hub.
I would say Tampa's a good one. Orlando, we get a lot of people from Orlando. It's similar distance depending on which way you go. Ocala is another one, Gainesville. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say those are Lake County too. Like we get some people, there's a place called the Villages, Florida. I grew up in Leesburg, Florida. So it's just a pebble skip away from where I grew up. I would say Tampa and Orlando are probably big ones. Easy to get to. Tampa, you can hit 19 and go all the way. And then Orlando, you can take the turnpike over to 19. So there's a pretty straight shots, I would say, from both of those.
Cool. Amazing. And is Crystal River, is there a town there that people can stay in and explore? Are there other things to do in Crystal River area that you like to do when you're visiting or when you're there?
Yeah, definitely. Crystal River is a great town. I will say last year we got hit with the hurricanes back to back, which did a number on Crystal River. So where we are a lot better than we were as a little city, we're still recovering. And I know there's one big hotel there, resort called Plantation Inn, that a lot of people would come to. It's been around since I was a child. They're recovering from that, but there are some new hotels that have been put in following that. But yeah, it's a beautiful little town, tons of little shops. There's like a sweet little main street that we launched. We're like 2 blocks from that. A lot of waterfront restaurants, a lot of things to do outside. One of the cool things I tell our guests to go do is Hunter Springs Park. If you're coming on a Manatee season tour and you want to swim in the spring, that one's open to the public and it's a beach access. So it's cool. We let the guests go. Sometimes there's manatees in there, so they'll go before or after the tour. And then there's a one called Fort Island Gulf Beach, which is a really cool one. So it's right on the coast. It's a bit of a drive out there, but it's a beautiful little drive out there, but it's more of a beach environment. So that's a cool place. You can go spend the day, be outside and put some chairs in the sand and chill.
Awesome. We used to go to St. George Island a lot when I lived out in Atlanta.
Oh,
And
sweet.
the Gulf Coast or Gulf of Mexico vibes are just so good. That area is
Yes.
so special. Yeah.
And it's so calm. It's
Yeah,
like
it's so
so much
calm.
more calm, which is awesome. And you can
Right.
see the beautiful sunsets. Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'd love to talk about the Chaz and the
Yeah.
Chassahowitzka River. There you go.
Yes.
At least for now, until I find out that I said it
Yeah.
wrong.
I always say the Chassahowitzka, but I'm sure there's people who have different pronunciations of it.
Sure.
But yeah, that one's a cool one.
Where's that located? Tell us about that tour. What's special about that river when it runs? And I'd love to hear
Yeah.
it.
So similar to Crystal River, we do the same kind of tour model where we have a Manatee season tour that runs November 15th through March 31st. That is in Homosassa, so it's just south of Crystal River, about 25 minutes, I would say, from like launch point to launch point, 30 max. But it's in Homosassa. It is, we call it Old Florida just because it is truly untouched. It is one of the coolest rivers I've ever been on. It's funny because when I started the Crystal River location, I had been trying to get out to the Chaz to see if I could get a location going there for years. And then we ended up partnering with Seven Sisters Campground. And so we launched out of their campground. And it's such a beautiful river. I don't know how to like describe it like more than that. It's just calm, peaceful, so diverse with the wildlife. We see dolphins a lot out there, manatees, obviously. They call it a bird watcher's paradise because there's so many different species of birds. I went out there, it was probably a few months ago, and I was out, not sunset, but close to it, and I was seeing bald eagles just flying around. It was so cool.
Wow.
There's gators, but I want to say there's gators, but there's not like a heavy populated
Sure.
amount of gators. It's maybe we'll see one or two when we're out on the water. But it's home to another spring, a couple of them, but one is called Seven Sisters Springs, which is maybe one of the coolest like springs I've ever seen. It's like an underwater like cave system. It looks,
Okay.
think about it like Swiss cheese under the water. So you can
Wow.
go in one, then swim through and come out the other. We don't do that on our tours just because of safety reasons, but you can still get in and like put your feet in. You can get in on that. And then there's a place called the Crack. So on our tour, we'll paddle to the Crack, which is it's a longer paddle. This tour is, we label it more of an intermediate paddle. And then it is 3 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours long of a tour. But we'll paddle back to the Crack and then we'll go through a place called Baird Creek, which is like Jurassic Park, honestly. It's pretty awesome. And there's like sandbars. It's pretty shallow all the way, most of the way through that. So if you need to stop and get out, you totally can. I've done it. It's pretty sweet. But those are two big pieces of the Chaz, I would say.
And not the tunnel or the cave, but the Swiss cheese
Yeah,
referencing.
Seven Sisters.
Is there scuba diving there? How deep are these Seven Sister Springs? Or are there other things that other ways to explore some of those underwater?
Yeah.
caves?
Yeah, I've never seen scuba divers out there. It's pretty small area. I feel like when you go back into it, it's pretty much like an entire rock. And so it's just a holy rock. But
Different rock formation.
yeah, but there's other springs that I'm sure people scuba dive and dive in. I've personally done the caves before, and it's a bit intimidating, I would say. Like when you get down in there, I had done it with a local. He actually guided with me for a very long time. But he was like, come on, do it. And I'm like, are we sure we're good? And so I did it after hours kind of thing. But yeah, you can even walk on top. It's very shallow. And then you look down and it's just blue. It's like a blue hole. And there's multiple of them. And you can, when it's calm, you can see it like gushing water, which is really cool coming out of those rocks. But
yeah, I can't wait to get out there.
Yeah,
you wanted to do a road trip out there for a very long time. So it's time.
Let me know. We'd be happy to have you out there at both.
Sure.
It'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, absolutely. About your tours, I think you offer private, open groups up to 10, obviously. Mm-hmm. What's included? What's not included? What's somebody expect if they're booking their tour? You mentioned, I would love to learn, you have some beginner options, intermediate options, but do you require experience? What are some questions that you get that can help ease people's mind or just learn more about the tours?
Yeah, I think for the Chaz, we label it as an intermediate paddle. I think just simply because it's a longer paddle and people who don't know how to kayak, it sometimes can be a little bit more difficult. That's why we have guides though. So it's like the balance of that. We also did upgrade all of our kayak seats. So now we have like fully supported cushioned seats for our kayaks, which makes it a lot easier than the foldable kayak seats. But yeah, so it is one of those, you don't really need to bring anything. It's a plug and play kind of setup where we just simply ask if you can bring polarized sunglasses or just some sort of sunglasses. Helps you see through the water a little bit better. If you could bring a bottle of water, preferably like in a reusable container, so we're not littering. So really, and a towel to dry off with, really is. So we'll provide life jackets, whistles, all the safety gear you need, paddles, kayak seats, a guide. And when you do get to Seven Sisters, there's a parking fee, and there is one also at Crystal River. But pretty much water bottle, hat, bring your phone. Our guides are happy to take photos of you guys, of our guests as well. So if you wanted that, we don't charge for any photo packages or anything like that. Like to keep it pretty intimate, honestly.
Amazing.
So yeah, just come and sit in a kayak and we got you.
And then ability level in terms of ADA or kid friendliness, who are you able to support in terms of inclusion of people's weight for the kayaks, different things that maybe go into it?
Yeah, I could start with weight. The weight limit is 425 pounds per vessel. Right. And then combined and per seat, the weight rating is 250 pounds. So as long as the kayak is, if you don't weigh over 250 pounds, you're good. And then as long as the combined total weight does not exceed 425, you're also good. And we are dog friendly. I will say that for both of our locations. The only caveat with Crystal River is they're not allowed to get out of the kayak, but at the Chaz, they can. And then the children are allowed. We advise against bringing like very small children, I would say, like definitely no infants, things like that. But yeah, and then ADA, we are not like officially ADA. However, we have had, like, I can explain, there are steps to get down to the Chaz launch. So that is the only way. It's on a floating dock. And then we're on another floating dock at Crystal River. You can wheel down to the launch dock, but you would have to get down into the kayak. And that's something we aren't able to support. But we have been able to accommodate certain situations like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for covering so much detail. Your experiences are super awesome. I would love to learn more about if somebody's planning a trip, if you are either looking to see manatees or other times of year that are really special. What's a good time of year to visit? And then during the day, what are the different options? Is there like a sunrise, afternoon, or sunset? What are the good times of day that you'd like to get out on the water?
Yeah, I would say that if your goal is to see manatees, generally speaking, they're more active in the morning time, in the evening, going back and forth from the bay. So I would say that if you're coming out in the summer, really it's going to be hot every single tour. It's really up to you what you want to do. I always tell our guests if they're coming out in the summer and they want the highest chance of seeing manatees, I'd say pretty much the morning. We don't offer any sunset-y tours or anything right now, but we're currently working on changing up our tours at the Chaz to offer earlier tours as more of an eco option. So you can see as the wildlife is waking up, kind of things like that. And then we are flirting with the idea of doing like a sunset tour there as well. And that's still in the works. So not official yet, but there's some changes to come for our Chaz location. But for Crystal, it's pretty much the 9, 12, and 3 p.m. daily tours that we offer. And then if we book up, then we fill in the gaps essentially with more tours. But yeah, I would say there's something to be seen, and there's like different times of day provide different things.
Yep. Different.
But I think the morning time, if manatees seem to be a big draw as being the manatee capital of the world in Crystal River and the Chaz. So I would say that the morning would be maybe the better time if you're wanting to have the highest chance of seeing manatees. But in manatee season, I would say any day, anytime is pretty much good. I would say that December, January, February are really hot months. I would say January being one of the bigger ones. And even through March, it ends up being pretty busy. But yeah, I'm hoping for a big year. We've been seeing tons of manatees on the off season. So I'm really hoping for a pretty big year with having all the manatees come back in and hanging out with our friends again.
Yeah, amazing. I love how local outdoor businesses can be a channel of protecting the wildlife, and responsible recreation could be really a great way to do that. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing in getting people outside responsibly, and then in the process, connecting with nature, connecting with the areas, and working to protect these beautiful creatures that we love seeing so much. Anything else that you'd like to add that I didn't cover?
Yeah, we hit a lot of it. To like piggyback off of what you were just saying, it's really nice to slow down sometimes. I think as like in this fast moving life that we all live in, it's really nice. And I think what we try to do is provide that like quietness a little bit more, still connecting with nature. So yeah, we'd be happy to have anybody out on tours with us, but it's Been a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, absolutely, Austin. And that's so well said. Thank you so much for making the point about what we get out of it. I think we move so fast, so even if we can take a couple hours break to put our phones down and really just
Yes.
be in nature and know that everything's taken care of, I think it's such a great value and offering that we offer.
Yes.
And many of our outfitters do.
I love it when I get to do it. I can't
Same.
necessarily do it much anymore, but be on the water and guiding. But yeah, I cherish every moment when I'm out there. Get to put the phone down and just soak in the vitamin D.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me. You can find Austin at getupandgokayaking.com. You can find the location and, of course, on Trip Outside and on social media, I'm sure. But if there's any other links that you'd like to include, we'll drop those into the video description, and all the information that we mentioned today, we'll add that in. And thank you so much for your time today, Austin. I know it's very valuable, and for your attention, everyone, for joining us.
Yes.
Have a great
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Thanks
Hopefully
so
we
much.
can do it again and have you over at Crystal River and the Chaz.
Yeah, next time it should be in-person activity.
Yes, you let
what
me
I
know.
love.
You let me
Absolutely.
know.
You know it.
Well, awesome.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Trip Outside podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, let us know in the comments on Apple Podcasts. Share it with your friends and subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, if you felt inspired to travel, you can support the show by booking your next trip on tripoutside.com, the easiest way to book human-powered outdoor adventures.